Hey guys, this is Speaking Vacations, and welcome to my review of Commando. 1985 film directed by Mark L. Lester. This is definitely one in my top five of my all-time favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger flicks. I'd probably say this is number three. Number one would be Predator. Number two would be The Running Man, and this would come in at number three, close third, running up, runner-up behind The Running Man. Mainly, it's interesting because I watched this and then I watched The Running Man again, and I hadn't seen The Running Man in a while, and then after watching that again, I forgot how much I really love that movie. And Commando, I still really like this film. I still think it's a really good movie. I really don't find anything wrong with it, to be honest. With my top three, probably with my top five of Schwarzenegger films, I don't really find anything wrong with them. It's just there's ones that I might like watching more, and I would probably say if I had to choose, I'd probably choose The Running Man over Commando, but Commando's still a classic. Um, it's I think it's held up really well because it's one of those few films of the genre. Actually, a lot of the best 80s action movies that hold up are the ones that are kind of in on the joke. And to explain what I'm going at here is the movies that don't take themselves seriously from the beginning. The action films that don't take themselves seriously from the get go, the ones that are jam packed with one liners and jokes, the ones that pretty much have their heroes on God mode throughout the entire film. Like, imagine putting in a cheat code on Contra and you're just mowing down everybody in your path. That's pretty much what Commando is like. And these are not necessarily thinking man's movies. There's a definition of popcorn entertainment. Movies you just turn your brain off and enjoy them for what they are. And but at the same time, I think these movies have become ripe for parody in recent years. Have become basically called a joke. Oh, that's not realistic. Well, here's what I gotta say. The movie already knew that. And people back in the 80s who saw this movie and pretty much gave it about over $50 million when it came out on a $10 million budget knew that already. They knew that they were watching a movie that wasn't realism. It was a fantasy. It was it was every man's wet dream to be able to kick some ass with unlimited ammo and unlimited resources. And to be honest, hey, that's how I want it. It's like the movie's almost like it's like a video game. You get unlimited continues, you get unlimited ammo, you get unlimited lives. You're on John Matrix is on invincibility mode throughout the whole film, and honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. Um, but as evidenced by a film called Shoot 'Em Up that came out in 2007, a film that had the same sort of tongue-in-cheek vibe with very memorable fun one-liners and really cool action scenes, and, a script that was self-aware, it bombed. If that film was released in the 80s, it might have been a hit, but it wasn't. So it seems like recently it has become the hip, the cool thing to think that this type of movie is just a joke. And the thing is, though, it is. It's not that the filmmakers knew they were making a sort of a very tongue-in-cheek action movie. They knew that from the beginning. Even in their interview on this DVD, Marco Lester and the writer Stephen E. D'Souza even admitted that. They said that yeah, we were being a little bit campy here, and we were writing dialogue that was a little bit over the top, but over the top and action scenes that are over the top. But what's more memorable, over the top or bland and boring? I think I'm going to go with the over the top action. And I think lately, and it seems like, I don't know, for some reason, Hollywood and a lot of people seem to think that we don't want that. That us as audiences, we don't want the over the top action movie anymore. But look at something like The Avengers. That's a bunch of heroes on invincibility mode. On God mode throughout the whole movie. And people love that and ate it up. Look at the first two Expendables movies. Those are pretty successful. Those are pretty much movies that were tongue-in-cheek and were over the top with their action. I mean, just because Christopher Nolan did it doesn't mean that you have to. That's what I'm getting at. I mean, just because Christopher Nolan's Batman films were popular doesn't mean that that's the way that the action genre should go. And I think that that's the wrong direction if that's that's where we're going. I know I haven't really gotten into the review yet, but it's Commando. It's a very simple plot. Pretty much the tagline of the movie already explains it for you. Somewhere, somehow, someone's going to pay. That's the plot right there. That's all you need. In fact, the film was actually made. It's interesting, very interesting, but actually pretty interesting backstory behind Commando. Um, it was actually written with a completely different idea in mind. Um, Screenwriter Jeff Loeb originally wrote the script with the intention of having Gene Simmons play John Matrix, but Gene Simmons passed on it early in the developmental stage. Loeb then rewrote the script with Nick Nolte in mind as an out-of-condition former commando. The storyline was to concern a special forces agent working in the Middle East who becomes sick of the continuous death and destruction. He leaves Israel and returns to the United States and retires, but he is then forced out of retirement after the kidnapping of his daughter. Now, that's not what happened because Nick Nolte eventually turned it down. Director Mark L. Lester also initially wanted Raul Julia to play the role of Arias, which went to Dan Hedaya. But producer Joel Silver is the one that insisted on casting Dan Hedaya instead of Raul Julia. Raul Julia in 1990, which would flex his acting muscles and do a really good job as a villain in a film called The Rookie in 1990. There was a Clint Eastwood film. Charlie Sheen was also a co-star in that. Commando was also Mark L. Lester's favorite movie of his own. And yes, Nick Nolte was the original choice for John Matrix, but Arnold Schwarzenegger was cast instead. Also, John McTiernan was offered the chance to direct this film, but he turned it down. Of course, he would go on a couple years later to direct Predator. Now, what's also pretty interesting about the film is that it was pretty much it was greenlit and was given a budget and everything, and on the idea of Arnold being the star. That's it. They rewrote the entire original script about the Israeli commando, retired, and so forth. And they pretty much just packaged the film as Arnold Schwarzenegger is Commando. That's it. They didn't really even have a script until the studio just put it on the fast track because they just signed a deal with distribution. I think with Schwarzenegger, they signed a contract, and they were itching for a new Schwarzenegger movie. So 20th Century Fox pretty much just said, hey, look for a script that might work for an Arnold Schwarzenegger film. And one of the guys at Fox ended up finding one he thought might work, and it was Commando, and they ended up rewriting it and doing a complete rewrite with the help of Stephen E. D'Souza and a few other screenwriters, and the rest is history. So the film was pretty much packaged and made as just honestly on the idea, not necessarily on a screenplay, but the idea of Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Commando. Now, the film pretty much this is the director's cut DVD, which is the best version of the film to have. Even the Blu-ray doesn't even have the director's cut version. It says director's cut. There's like about 92 seconds of extra footage. Most of it is just a little bit of extra gore, which is nice, to be honest. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna bash that. Not even close. I mean, who would? But anyway, the film still plays Fast and Furious, even in its director's cut version, because it's pretty much only 92 seconds longer. So it says 95 minutes, but really it's only 92. And so it's pretty much only about maybe like a minute longer, a minute and a half longer than the original theatrical cut. But the director's cut, for some reason, is still not available on Blu-ray. The only way you can get the film on Blu-ray is with the original cut, the theatrical cut. And I don't even know if the Blu-ray has all of these features. It had a commentary with Mark L. Lester and two featurettes, pure action featurette and Let Off Some Steam, which were fun. It was fun to hear Rae Dawn Chong's thoughts about it. She said some fun stuff like, I didn't understand why Arnold Schwarzenegger became a star, but someone like me, I don't know. I don't know how that happened. She had a lot of fun things to say. Vernon Wells was great. He had a lot of fun things to say too. How Arnold was actually so scared of his performance as Bennett that after they had the scene where they fought, he was like, "Get him away from me! Get him away from me now! Get him away from me!" Which I find that pretty funny. But after the film, they became really good friends. Arnold actually pretty much didn't before Bennett, before well I call him Bennett, but before Vernon Wells, pretty much before he went in front of the camera and was playing Bennett, he was this really nice guy. So Arnold couldn't believe that he could be mean, and so he ended up. And then when when the director says, the cameras start rolling, and then he really does. He can be really mean, and it was actually really fun. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger. They don't have any new interviews, which too bad. Which is really too bad. Pretty much the clips with Arnold are from the featurette, or from the set back in the day, but they're still really fun. You could tell Arnold was just a bundle of personality back in his prime. Now, but yeah, you can tell why people were just really attracted to him. He was a very magnetic personality. Now, so yeah, after the film, after the making of the movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Vernon Wells have remained very close friends. Vernon Wells wasn't actually the original actor cast to play Bennett. He did audition for the role, but another actor got it. On the first day of filming, however, director Mark L. Lester fired the other actor and hired Wells. This is the reason that Bennett's clothes seem so tight, because Bill Wells is bigger than the original actor. But the production didn't have time to make a new costume. Over the years, a rumor has developed that Wells originally auditioned for the part of Matrix, but this is false. Also, the shopping mall, the Sherman Oaks Galleria, which is used in the film, is the same one that was used in T2. But since the filming of Terminator 2 wrapped, the mall has been remodeled. Martial arts expert and fight choreographer Michael M. Vendrell worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger on the film, and by the end of the production, Vendrell estimated that Schwarzenegger had become a second-degree black belt. The film took 45 days to shoot. The shot of Matrix standing on the landing gear of the plane as it races down the runway was shot by constructing the wheel section of a plane and attaching it by hydraulics to the side of a camera truck. Director Marco Lester had never met original writers Jeff Loeb and Matthew Wiseman, as they had already been replaced by Stephen E. D'Souza when Lester was hired. The mansion used in the final shootout between Matrix and Arius, the former Harold Lloyd estate in Beverly Hills, is the same mansion seen in the final shootout between Axel Foley and Victor Maitland and Beverly Hills Cop. I knew that damn mansion looked familiar, and it was. It's not a bad thing, I'm just saying, but it was. In the prologue, it was originally scripted for Diaz, played by Gary Carlos Cervantes, not Cook, played by Bill Duke, to steal the car and kill the salesman. Matrix's raid on the complex at the end of the film was shot on a beach in San Simeon, California, near William Randolph Hearst's castle. Originally, the scene was to be shot at Palos Verdes in California, but 2 days before shooting, the Coast Guard pulled their permits. During the scene in the shed, after Matrix cuts the soldier's arm off, he was really supposed to hit the victim with it and say, "Need a hand." I would have loved to have seen that. Just arm off, need a hand. The scene was never shot, however. It was considered too macabre. For a movie that is already macabre enough. That's insane. Despite this, the 2007 director's cut restored a few extra scenes of footage of Matrix tossing the cut limb nonchalantly at the wounded soldier, as most likely a lighter alternative to blatantly hitting him with it. Although I would have loved to have seen that. That would have made the movie even more awesome than it already is. Now, so that's a little bit of the trivia. Now, I guess I can talk about, stuff like the film itself, or actually talk about there were actually toys. Yeah, there were Commando toys. Diamond Toy Makers released a line of action figures in 1986 after the film came out to cash in on the success of the G.I. Joe Real American Hero. Matrix now leads an elite special forces unit, which replaced his old deceased unit from the original film called C-Team, made up of Specs, Blaster, and Chopper against the forces of Fear, led by Psycho, who is based on the character Bennett, and consisting of Leadhead, Stalker, and Sawbones. There was a assortment of 4-inch figures containing all of the above, a series of 8-inch figures consisting of Matrix, Specs, Blaster, Psycho, Leadhead, and Stalker. Chopper and Sawbones are absent. finally there was an 18-inch John Matrix that came with a pistol, M16, and a grenade. Now, I got a funny story about that toy. I never knew this was actually real. For the longest time, I thought there was a fantasy and it was just something I dreamed up as a kid because I saw what I thought to believe a John Matrix action figure at a Goodwill years ago when I was like really, really young, like maybe 8 or even younger than that. And I always remember this because I passed that toy down for action figure of the Thing from the Fantastic Four. I've always regretted that decision to this day. I wish I could go back in time and tell my young kid self, no, get the Commando figure. Because I knew it's something related to Commando. I knew it because it said Commando on the leg, and I knew that it would look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I still to this day, I don't know why my dumbass kid self didn't go for that figure instead, but I'm regretting that to this day because these action figures are hella rare and hard to find, and I'd love to have one, but they're too expensive, and I can't afford it. But anyway, let's actually start talking about the movie, shall we? Well, I did anyway. I talked about the backstory and things like that. I mean, come on. Commando is an iconic film. I mean, it's a movie that a lot of people know about the movie. It's one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's most popular films. It's one of the most iconic action films of the 80s. It's not necessarily like it's a movie that's underrated or a movie that nobody talks about. Commando is a film that still to this day is got a huge cult following. And I think part of that definitely is, I'll go back to what I was mentioning earlier, is that it is tongue-in-cheek, that it does have this sort of campy quality to it. And partly because it does have these memorable lines of dialogue and these fun action scenes. It wouldn't be as well regarded or as well remembered over the years if it wasn't a little bit tongue-in-cheek, if it didn't have so many fun one-liners, if it wasn't so much fun to watch. And I think even today, the most memorable films lately are the ones with the memorable lines and the ones with the memorable scenes of action. I think the only reason why something like The Dark Knight is pretty much memorable... Well, even The Dark Knight is a memorable film for memorable lines. Well, the people usually point to the Joker's line of dialogue. Heath Ledger's Joker's lines of dialogue, like, why so serious? That became a huge phenomenon. So some of the most popular movies, think about it. Sit down and think about it. Some of the probably about 90% of the most popular movies and most well-regarded films and most well-remembered movies have really memorable lines of dialogue, which helps the audience helps somehow in some way help the audience become part of the film, so they can, so when they watch the movie, then they can, they remember the lines of dialogue, and then they can repeat them back, and then they become part of the experience. And I think that's one of the many reasons why Commando still has a really long shelf life. Also, why I think it has such a big fan base, that I think that's the reason why the remake stalled. A lot of people probably weren't really interested in it. And I mean, come on, who would want to watch Channing Tatum as John Matrix versus actually just sitting down, popping in the real Commando and watching the real John Matrix kick ass? Of course, you'll choose Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime any day of the week over Channing Tatum. If you feel otherwise, that's fine. But I know what I'm choosing. I'm choosing Arnold. Now, so anyway, the plot is pretty much really, really, really a simple plot. And that's part of the reason why I think it's such a fun film to watch, and it's also so memorable because it's so easy to remember these things. You have so many great lines of dialogue, but also you don't end up getting lost in the plot. It doesn't end up confusing you to the point of frustration. It's just a really simple plot. Arnold Schwarzenegger plays this retired Delta Force commando named John Matrix, who, in the beginning of the film, Arnold gets his chance to kind of flex his sort of non-Terminator muscles or non-Conan muscles. One of the main reasons why he actually took this script is because in the beginning of the film and pretty much the whole movie, he's not the Terminator. He's not Conan. He's not playing a barbarian. He's playing a normal, not really necessarily normal human, because he's still Arnold Schwarzenegger, a bigger-than-life personality, but he's has a little bit more normal things to do. Like he has the scenes with Alyssa Milano, Matrix's daughter in this film, Jenny Matrix. And at the beginning of the film, Arnold, during the opening credits, Arnold is just being a regular stay-at-home dad. And that was something that Arnold was really attracted to. and he did a really good job with it. There was a lot of genuine charm with those scenes, and also I'm not gonna call it's not 80s cheese. Okay, this is not 80s cheese. This movie is packed with 80s charm. That's what I'm gonna say. Commando is packed. Films like this are packed with 80s charm, not cheese. They're very charming. They're very fun to watch. They're very likable, mainly because they are, like I said, they're charming. They really do. They're very appealing and entertaining. I think it is because they don't take the film seriously. Right from the get go, the movie's not taking itself seriously. Starts off with these bad guys who are uh, hitching a ride on a garbage truck. The homeowner wakes up, thinks he's missed the garbage. He thanks the garbage people for remembering him, and then he gets shot, and then they say a one-liner after he dies. It was that type of movie. Um, Cook ends up stealing Bill Duke ends up stealing a car at a car dealership, and the guy and the car dealership guys, you don't want leather, this is vinyl, man. It won't stick on you on a hot day. It's perfect, man. It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what I love the most? The price. And then he just drives away, and runs over the car dealer and drives through the glass windows of the showroom and drives away. I mean, this is a really, really fun flick, and it's in on the joke. When you saw these movies that started parodying this type of genre, Hot Shots Part 2, for instance, is still a very enjoyable film. They really weren't parodying that much, because, to be honest, a lot of these movies in themselves are already having fun with the concept. And I think a lot of films lately have kind of gone away from that. And I think it's because it's become the more popular thing to be more serious, to be more in this post 9/11 world. We're not joking anymore. We're serious, serious, serious. We're serious. We're super serial, and we are, to the point where it's just really depressing. That's why I love something like The Avengers, because it was really uplifting. It was just hey, we got all heroes together. Yeah, Clark Gregg died, but hey, we still have a really, after that happened, though, you still had a really fun movie. And I think that's what I think a lot of movies nowadays are missing. Godzilla had a chance to be something like that, a fun, tongue in cheek sort of film. That would have been an interesting way to take the franchise. Because to be honest, Godzilla shouldn't be taken seriously. It's a movie about a giant, 100-foot tall dinosaur. It really should honestly have had a little bit more fun with its concept. But instead, it took itself super serious, and as a result, it was insufferably boring. A film like this doesn't take itself seriously, and every minute of it is entertaining and fun to watch as a result. So, I'm not saying every movie has to be over the top and full of 80s charm, or, trying to be in on the joke, or have its tongue in its left cheek. I'm saying that because there are still some movies that are really great, for sparking your intellect, sparking your intelligence, like Zodiac, for instance, and that's one of my favorite films too. But there's also a place for these type of movies. I think lately the criticism that these type of movies get is unwarranted. These type of movies don't need to be called bashed for not being realistic, because they already know they're not being realistic. Even the producers and the people who are behind the production have already said that multiple times. The film itself even admits it multiple times in multiple scenes, and of just complete unrealism. But it's for the sake of a fantasy, for the sake of fun, for the sake of a movie, a movie going experience that you won't be able to experience in real life. That's what I thought movies were for. I go to see a movie to experience something I wouldn't ever experience in real life. That's something I disagree with. I agree with the nostalgia critic on a good amount of things, and some things I disagree with. But I definitely do disagree with his opinion that, that the idea that we go to movies to experience things we don't experience in real life being wrong. It's we go into movies to experience and feel things that are real, and then in these big, grand, crazy ways. I disagree with that. Um, I think for me anyway, it's a fantasy. It's a nice fun. It's a rush. It's a fun ride. It's almost like a thrill ride. It's almost like an amusement park or a roller coaster. These type of films. It's just you go into it, you watch them for the experience, and sometimes you have to turn your brain off. And if you do, you have a lot more fun. This is not a movie that should be analyzed analytically and bashed because it's not realistic. Oh, you run out of ammo before. I mean, who gives a shit? Do you think the producers didn't know that? They knew that, but they knew that they didn't want to hamper themselves. They didn't want to put themselves under the heel of the ideal of realism, so they couldn't end up doing more with the concept. They wanted to go all out with it. They wanted to go over the top. They wanted to go overblown and as over the top as possible with it. They probably could have gone even more over the top, like the scene that was deleted where Arnold smacks a dude in the face with a severed arm. And to be honest, I would have loved to have seen that. I would love to have the movie to have been even more over the top. But you see what I'm getting at? A lot of my favorite action films, a lot of the classic action movies, are over the top action films. Even Die Hard has some really overblown, over the top, unrealistic action sequences. But you know what? It doesn't matter because they're a lot of fun to watch and they're thrilling. You base your action film in the realm of reality, you're like enclosing yourself in a really small box. Break down the box. Go outside the box. And you'll be able to do so much more. And I don't understand why that's not the main thing now. Unless it's a throwback movie like Expendables or Expendables 2. Or The Avengers in a rare occasion. But going back to the whole one-liner thing, I know a lot of people seem that's corny, that's lame, that's really cheesy or whatever. One-liners suck. But that's bullshit. Because look at what everybody was talking about when The Dark Knight came out. A one-liner. Why so serious? Look at what everybody was talking about when The Avengers came out. The Hulk's moment where he smashes Loki and the line that he said. Puny God. See, this still applies to this day about these lines of dialogue that people as a mass, and en masse, mobs of people remember. And they relate it to the film itself. Something like Avatar won't have the same sort of life as Commando, because Avatar is just pretty much just an effects show. There's no memorable lines of dialogue in Avatar. There's no memorable action scenes. It might have been a fun experience at the time to be on the roller coaster ride, but that's about it. But Commando has so many fun lines of dialogue, so many fun moments that you remember, and you'll always hold near and dear to your heart. And if you feel that way about Avatar, that's fine too. But what I'm getting at is Commando is not a movie that should be bashed for being over the top and for being unrealistic. The filmmakers knew that from the beginning. So that's what, and the film is a lot better for that. Hard Target. All these films I have behind me, they're not realistic, and they're all better, much better for it. Not saying there's not a place for realism. There's a place for realism. There is. But there's also a place for unrealism, a place for fantasy, a place for having fun with the concept, for being able to play in the sandbox. I think a lot of movies lately and a lot of producers have confused and just seem to think that the popular thing nowadays is to not do that anymore. Which, to be honest, I don't think that has been proven the case. Because while movies that are super serious, with their over-the-top material like Godzilla, or The Dark Knight Rises, or, and so forth, there are still movies that don't take themselves seriously, well, at least not 100% of the time, like Avengers, that are huge box office hits. So, it's almost like finding the middle ground, but I just feel that this isn't a genre that should just die and be relegated to direct-to-video. Because to be honest, you take the fun out of an action movie and you take the over-the-top action out of an action movie and you got an episode of Cops. That's not really exciting. That's not really fun to watch. You don't watch Forensic Files on the big screen now, do you? See what I'm getting at? It can be interesting, but it's not as much fun. And I think, a lot of action films lately just need to have more fun. Stop being so damn realistic. Stop being stuck in the box. Think outside the box. And party like Commando. Anyway, yeah, so I don't really need to talk about the plot. I mean, I've almost wanted to do something different with this review because a little bit more of a review / retrospective. So everyone knows about the plot. Like I said earlier, John Matrix, Arnold Schwarzenegger, retired Delta Force Commando, his daughter Jenny, played by Alyssa Milano. She ends up getting kidnapped, and Dan Hedaya's Arius, who is a deposed general, a deposed president of Valverde, which is a fictional country that was created by Hollywood to try to take the place of Cuba and things like that. And it was also used in Predator. And he wants Arnold Schwarzenegger to his character, John Matrix, to get on a plane and kill the current president so he can take power again. In order to do that, he's ended up kidnapping his daughter and sort of as for a ransom. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger, his character John Matrix, he gets on the plane, but he kills the guy who's watching over him, and he manages to actually get off the plane before it takes off to Valverde. So now Matrix has 16 hours to find the location of where his daughter is, or she will be killed. That's pretty much the plot of Commando in a nutshell. Like I said, in my opinion, when it comes to an action movie, to be honest, the simpler the better. Die Hard. John McClane, he's a cop, he's in a skyscraper, terrorists come in and wreak havoc, and he's got to stop it. That's it. That's as simple as that plot. That's as simple as you can get with that plot. Commando is the same way. Schwarzenegger's character, John Matrix, his daughter gets kidnapped, and he has to find where she is before they kill her in 16 hours. Which is one thing which I think is a little bit overlooked about the film is the time limit that I have, which the film has, which I thought was pretty clever and well used. Along the way, Matrix finds a confidant in Rae Dawn Chong's character, Cindy, which was a groundbreaking role at that time because there really were not that many films where there was a black female lead. This is very revolutionary for the 1980s. Now, of course, we have other great cast members. Dan Hedaya as Arius, Vernon Wells as Bennett, James Olson as Major Franklin Kirby, who is pretty much the Trotman for John Matrix. David Patrick Kelly as Sully. Alyssa Milano as his daughter Jenny. Bill Duke as, not Sully's daughter, but as Matrix's daughter Jenny. Bill Duke as Cook. Bill Paxton actually has a brief role as a guy on a Navy interceptor. He's a radar operator. That's something where I think a lot of people forget that Bill Paxton has a bit role in this film. And a few other people like Carlos Cervantes and so forth as Diaz and so on. But pretty much what happens, the film opens up with the sort of heartwarming moments where Arnold Schwarzenegger is having moments with nice, charming moments with his daughter, where he's talking about, stuff like this. Even lines like this I thought were fun. It was fun to see Arnold, saying lines like that, like this, where he's just hanging out with his daughter and he's talking to her and stuff like that. See if I can find it. I know it's in here. I know it's in here. Sorry for the wait here. There's just a lot of lines, and there's a lot of great lines in Commando. Here it is. Arnold's character, John Matrix, is reading about Boy George in a pop magazine, and he's like, "Why don't they just call him Girl George? It would cut down on the confusion." Oh, Dad, that is so old. When I was a boy, the rock and roll came to East Germany, and the communists said it was subversive. Maybe they were right. So, that was kind of fun stuff. They share an ice cream and all of that. And it was nice to see that side of Arnold that you've never seen before. Of course, you've seen that in later films, but when Commando came out, that was really new. Now, of course, after that, though, fun time is over. You find out that a lot of the Matrix's old crew was getting murdered, and his major, played by James Olson, Major Kirby, comes in and he's trying to ask him to come out of retirement because, or he's not really asking him to come out of retirement, just saying, okay, I got these guys to protect you, something's going down. And that was all ruse. It was done on purpose in order to lead these bad guys to Matrix's secret place. And so Arnold even says a line where he's like, these new security guys, new army guys supposed to protect him, they got shot, and he's all like, "Come on, you should get downwind." He's like, "Why? What downwind? Because you could smell them from there." I was like, "What? You smelled them coming?" Nah. So what happens is you have this character named I think it's I'm trying to find this guy's name. Diaz, played by Carlos Cervantes. And he comes in, and all the rest of the military guys get shot. Arnold goes to his shed and gets some weapons. And this guy has this, memorable scene where he's talking to Arnold. He's sitting in a chair, and he's got this card or whatever that I think Jenny made for Schwarzenegger's character Matrix. And it's like, mellow out, man. We can't talk business with you waving guns in people's faces. Your daughter is safe, Colonel. Now, whether she stays that way is up to you. My people, they got some business with you. And if you want your kid back, then you gotta cooperate, right? Wrong. And then he just shoots him right between the eyes. I mean, that's the kind of awesomeness you're getting into with Commando. Right from the beginning, you know that this is gonna be a fun ride. Because the movie is just there to, it's just pure entertainment. Pure action, pure entertainment, and pure fun. Now, of course, there's way more memorable lines of dialogue. I'm not even getting started. There's a lot of them in this movie. So anyway, of course, what happens is Arnold then ends up finding a way to. He tries to save the situation. He ends up trying to get a little bit of a car chase because he gets in a car after he shoves it down the hill, trying to catch up with the bad guys, and the car ends up crashing. And gets out. He gets outnumbered, outgunned, and he gets captured. And then even when he gets captured and he's pretty much taken at gunpoint, and the main guy is giving him so much. Arias is pretty much telling him what he needs to do. He's still giving him shit. I mean, this is how much of a badass he is. Doesn't matter. He's still giving them shit. So I'm gonna try to find that scene, that line of dialogue as well. So excuse me for some of the pauses here and there. Here it is. It's like, do you remember me, Colonel? I remember you, scumbag. Especially the people you've tortured and killed. so it's just like, it didn't matter. He still calls him scumbag. And so that's when he tells him in the chant. It basically gives him the plan. What he needs to do is kill the president and so forth. I mentioned earlier. And so then Matrix ends up getting on the plane, and David Patrick Kelly, he has that fun line of dialogue. He's like, "You're funny guys. You're funny guys, Scully. That's why I'm going to kill you last." And then he ends up getting on the plane with the other guy supposed to be the bodyguard, prevent him from leaving the plane. Arnold makes short work of him, breaks his neck, and that's a fun line where he covers him with a blanket, puts a hat on his head, and he's like, "Excuse me." He's like, "How long is the flight?" It's about 16 hours. Okay. He's like, "Oh, please don't disturb my friend here. He's dead tired." There's that kind of fun, jokes, and fun one-liners like that. So then after that, of course, he ends up getting on, finding a way to get on the wheel of the plane, jump off, and he gets off the plane. So he's got 16 hours to find where his daughter is and save her. And even his daughter, takes after her dad, because even she's, pretty much they're given, Arias is saying, "Your father appears to be cooperating. You'll be back with him soon. Won't that be nice?" So not nearly as nice as watching him smash your face in. I mean, even the daughter is just about as much of a badass as her father. Of course, she doesn't have the muscles or the strength, but she's still got the attitude. So anyway, so the rest of the movie is just Matrix trying to find his daughter, and he ends up teaming up with Rae Dawn Chong, who I like this bit of the script where she's reluctant at first, like anybody would be. I like the bit that actually he asks her for help at the mall to save his daughter, and she actually goes in and rats him out to the mall cops. And then you have that scene later where she's like, "I tried to help you save your daughter, and you give me all this. Aren't you gonna give me any answers?" No, no. and she really didn't help him. She pretty much lied right there. But you in the audience, you know better that she actually was trying to get him arrested because he was crazy. That she thought he was a crazy guy. So, and of course, then what happens is, of course, he goes in and he meets up with Sully. That's the first one of the bad guys. Arnold meets up with a little bit of a car chase. Of course, before that, there was the cool bit of a short little action scene in the mall. Nice stunt. Arnold plays Tarzan, lifts up the phone booth with Sully in it in a nice scene. And even had like a couple of those, like one of the police guard guys. He's like, "Attention all units. Emergency on theater level. Suspect 6'2", brown hair. He is one gigantic motherfucker." And so then after that, they have a little car chase, and Arnold ends up goes after Sully, and he's all like, "Where is she, Sully? Kiss my ass. I can't hear you. Say a little louder. Get fucked. Listen, loyalty is very touching. It is the most important thing in your life right now. But what is important is gravity. I have to remind you, Sully, this is my weak arm. You can't kill me, Matrix. You need me to find your daughter. Where is she? I don't know, but Cook knows. I'll take you to where I'm supposed to meet it. But you won't. Why not? Because I already know. Remember, Sully, when I promised to kill you last? That's right, Matrix. You did. I lied. And he just drops his ass and to his death. Just one of the most memorable scenes in the film, at least for me. Even as a kid, I remember that. "Oh, we promised to kill you last." "That's right, Matrix, you did." "I lied." Ah! And then even Cindy asked, Rae Dawn Chong asked Matrix afterwards what happened. He's like, What happened to Sully?" "I let him go." And then, of course, then he goes off and faces off against Cook. It's another fun scene where Cook's like, "You scared, motherfucker?" "Well, you should be. Because this Green Beret's gonna kick your big ass. I eat Green Berets for breakfast. And right now, I'm very hungry. I'm very hungry." And then just goes out and kicks his ass. And then Cindy's hiding under her table. And she's like, "I can't believe this macho bullshit." And so her character is pretty much just pulling the covers off of this whole, idea of the film. It's so preposterous and over the top, and she keeps mentioning that over and over again. And a lot of fun stuff like that. Even when she's like, oh, of course, before he kills Cook, there's another fun scene where Cook's like, "Fuck you, asshole." He squeezes the trigger, the gun's empty, and Matrix is like, "Fuck you, asshole." I love that scene. And of course, stuff like I like the little banter that Matrix has with Cindy. "Tell me what this is all about." "Yeah, a guy trusted for years wants me dead." It's understandable. I've only known you for about 5 minutes, and I want you dead too. Of course, ultimately they end up, you know, getting getting close, so to speak, to each other. Well, not super close. I wouldn't really call her a love interest. I would call her just an acquaintance. Because they don't really kiss at the end, so we don't really say that they're really lovers. They're just friends, which is a really interesting sort of thing, too. And of course, even Arnold, he says, "I'll be back," like he does in every movie, you know, where he says, "I'll be back, Bennett. John, I'll be ready, John." And, even like the little fun lines where even Bennett is cracking some shit on his Arius' soldiers, and they're talking like, "We like to slit the little girl's throat. It's probably slit like warm butter, cut like warm butter." And Bennett's like, I really love listening to your little pissant soldiers trying to talk tough. They make me laugh. Matrix is here, he laughed too. So even Bennett's just about as memorable as Matrix, to be honest. And it's funny too about Bennett is he looks like Freddie Mercury on steroids. I know that's what in the interview on this documentary, Vernon Wells is like, I do not look like Freddie Mercury on steroids. No, you do. You do look like Freddie Mercury on steroids. You do. So yeah, fun. There's so many fun lines in this movie. Um, yeah. So anyway, what happens after he kills Cook? He punches him and impales him on this piece of wood. I think it's in the hotel room. And I like how they just keep busting through all these different walls and shit. And it's like these guys eat too much red meat. And so then, of course, after kills Cook, then he finds out that there's a plane that he can get on. The girl, Cindy, says she can fly it, but first they gotta go shopping, which I love. He takes a bulldozer and just drives through a sporting goods store and just gets all these weapons. He ends up getting arrested, which I thought was a nice touch. And then it's up to Cindy to save him, and she ends up using the bazooka, and she messes up with a rocket launcher and turns it fires it the wrong way and blows up something from behind her. So he turns around and shoots the police van just in time, so Matrix can get out, and with just enough time for her to fly the plane and take him to the island where his daughter is, and also where Arius and Bennett are, and about 81 soldiers, and so even have fun lines too where I like this where I'm trying to find there's like I said there's just so many fun lines in this movie. So Cindy's having a hard time turning on the plane. She's like Matrix is like, what's wrong? This isn't a plane. It's a canoe with wings. Well then, get in and start paddling. I think Arnold can actually be really funny. When he's trying. I really think he can be really, really, really funny, to be honest. Really funny guy. Um, and so you have that, of course. And then the plane still isn't starting up. And he's like, Arnold's basically threatening the plane. He's like, fly or die! And then punches it. And it works every time. I mean, there's just a lot, the movie's just having so much fun. And you can't help but have a lot of fun with the film, too. So anyway, of course, after they finally get the dang plane to work, then they fly to the island, and then you have this, in my opinion, one of the most badass scenes in all of action cinema. The suit up scene, and and this is where James Horner's score really works. James Horner's score, for the most part, is kind of disappointing in this film. I still like it, but it pretty much is just a rehash of his score from 48 Hours. And even there's moments in the film, like when Matrix is looking around the warehouse, it's pretty much the same score as Aliens. So he's rehashing two different scores. Actually, Aliens came out, I think, afterwards, so he ends up copying the score a little bit in the warehouse for scenes in Aliens. James Horner can't help himself, I guess. He can't help but copy his own music. But I think there are moments, though, where the score works. The score from 48 Hours. But, hey, it's still memorable. I still remember it. So, anyway, he suits up. It's badass. It's really one of the most badass scenes in action cinema history. And he doesn't even fire a weapon. He just suits up. And I just love the way it's shot. And I love the way it looks. It's pure badassness. It's pure testosterone-fueled awesomeness. And then you get the battle. Like I said, it's Contra on God mode. It's Arnold takes out 81 soldiers and just, like they were nothing. Just knocks them down one by one. Like they're just nothing to him. And it's a lot of fun to watch. Not realistic, but who cares? Nice crowd-pleasing explosion where he detonates the buildings. And you can tell it was actually on set and it wasn't CGI or anything like that. A real explosion, which seems to be that nowadays that's becoming lesser and lesser of a thing that you see on the big screen, which is sad. And grabs a bazooka, blows up a van of bad guys, and goes in and uses the bazooka rocket launcher and blows a hole through a door so we can get through. Takes down more of these guys. You know, just it's just it's awesome. There's no words really. It's just so awesome. You know, just mowing down all of these Colombian soldiers, and not realistic, but I don't give a shit. Knifing a couple. He gets stuck. You think he's trapped in the shed. He hangs on top when they think they shoot him. Gets back out and takes a saw blade, saws off the top of some guy's head, chops off his arm. Stabs a guy with a pitchfork. Then he goes in with some shotgun fun against Arias and shoots his ass out a window. And then he goes in with the final confrontation with Bennett, and that's a really fun scene too. You know, where Bennett's getting the upper hand, punching him, and a really nice little bit of choreography too. You know, stuff like I'm trying to find it here. Bennett's punching him, and they're trying to burn him in this furnace, and he's like, "John, I feel good, just like old times. What's it feel like to be a dying man? You're a dead man, John." Bullshit! That's one of my favorite line deliveries by Arnold. I think that's my favorite line delivery of that word ever in a movie. It's the best way bullshit is said in a movie. It really is the best rendition of bullshit in a film. Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando. I even like the scene, after he shoots him, and he's like, "John, how's your arm, John? Come over and find out." "No thanks. I think I'll take a pass." "John, stick your head out. One shot, right between the eyes. I'll make it quick, just for old time's sake." "Bennett, stop screwing around and let the girl go. It's me that you want. I only have one arm. You can beat me." Come on, Bennett. Come on, Bennett. Throw away the chicken shit gun. You don't just want to pull the trigger. You want to put the knife in me and look me in the eye and see what's going on in there when you turn it. That's what you want to do, right? "I can kill you, John." "Come on. Let the girl go. Just between you and me. Don't deprive yourself of some pleasure. Come on, Bennett. Let's party. I can beat you. I don't need the girl. I don't need the fucking girl. I don't need the gun, John. I can beat you. I don't need no gun. And I'll kill you now." It was just so crazy. Vernon Wells played a great psycho. And then, of course, Arnold gets the better of him, throws a steam pipe in his chest, have that fun line, memorable line of dialogue. "Let off some steam, Bennett." And, Bennett kindly obliges with the pipe that's stuck in his chest that pours some steam out of the end of it. He gets his daughter back. And even and then you have another fun sort of Kirby meets up with them, and you have this awesome song by the Power Station called "We Fight for Love," one of my favorite songs from the 80s, to be honest, and from the 80s soundtracks. Was never released on the soundtrack. It wasn't released until like 2006 or 2007 on the Power Station's remastered album. And then you have the whole sort of line where Matrix declines an offer to resume his unit, and Matrix is like, "This was the last time," and Kirby's like, "Until next time." And there's a pause, and then Matrix is like, "No chance, no chance," and then you have the awesome song by the Power Station, "We Fight for Love." Dun 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 dun. So yeah. You can tell I really enjoyed the movie. It was 50-something minutes. I'm sorry. I mean, I couldn't help it. Commando's a classic. And there's probably more lines of dialogue I forgot, but, those are the lines that I pretty much remember the most. This movie's just chock full of great, fun lines of dialogue. and it's a really fun movie. So, really, I think it's definitely, yeah, one of the best action movies of the 80s and one of Arnold's best. I really don't know what to say about Commando. I've said pretty much everything there is to say about Commando. I really don't know what to say except for rate on 5 stars. I'm giving it 5. I don't have any problems with this movie. I really don't. I really enjoy Commando. I find it a really crowd pleasing, fun action film, and I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I know it was a bit long in the tooth, but anyway, um, I would have shown clips instead of just doing the quotes, but I couldn't. 20th Century Fox wasn't going to allow me to do that. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it regardless. My amateur Schwarzenegger impression and all. Same thing for Vernon Wells. And yeah, I really don't know what to say except thanks for watching my review of Commando. And I will see you guys later. See ya.